The waters of Velcora Prime shimmered under the light of 3 suns. The planet was beautiful. Covered mostly by oceans and peaceful islands, the Velcorians lived here for thousands of years without knowing war. They were gentle beings who looked like a mix between dolphins and otters. With smooth blue skin and large, intelligent eyes, their cities floated on the water, built from coral and crystal that glowed at night. Theron was one of the council elders. He was old now, his skin darker blue with age, and he carried the wisdom of many generations. Today, he swam through the council chamber with fear in his heart. The news was bad, very bad. 3 days ago, ships appeared in their sky. Not friendly ships, not explorers or traders. These were warships covered in weapons and armor. The Crethians had arrived and they brought destruction with them. The Crethians were reptiles who stood on 2 legs with scales like armor and eyes like predators. They came from a hot world where only the strong survived. They had conquered many planets and now they wanted Velcora Prime. The Velcorians had nothing to fight back with. No weapons, no soldiers. They had always believed that peace and kindness would protect them. They were wrong. The first attack destroyed their satellites. The Velcorians could no longer communicate with the few outposts they had on other moons. Then the bombardment began. Cities on the southern islands were hit with plasma fire from orbit. Thousands died in minutes. The Velcorians who survived fled to underground shelters hiding beneath the ocean floor. Theron knew they needed help. He had heard stories from traders about other species in the galaxy. Some were peaceful like the Velcorians. Others were dangerous. And some, very few, were willing to fight for others. The Velcorians had one ancient communication array that the Crethians had not yet destroyed. It was old technology, hidden deep underwater, built by their ancestors for emergencies. Theron swam to the array with 2 other council members. The water around them was dark and coldless deep. They activated the system and began broadcasting a distress signal into space. The message was simple. They were under attack. They were peaceful. They needed help. Anyone who could hear them, please respond. The signal traveled through space at the speed of light, spreading in all directions. Theron did not know if anyone would hear it. He did not know if anyone would care. But he had to try. His people were dying. Far away, on the edge of known space, Captain Lisa Morgan sat in the command chair of the USS Valiant. The ship was not large, just a scout vessel with a crew of 20 humans. They had been mapping this sector for 3 months, charting new routes and looking for signs of intelligent life. Lisa was in her 30s, with short brown hair and sharp green eyes. She had served in the Terran fleet for 12 years and earned her command through skill and determination. Her crew trusted her completely. Jake Peterson sat at the tactical station. He was younger than Lisa, always ready with a joke to lighten the mood. Amy Sullivan worked in engineering, keeping the ship running smoothly. Dr. Henry Collins managed the medical bay, though he had few patients on such a quiet mission. The bridge was calm that day. Routine. Boring even. Then the computer beeped with an alert. Jake looked at his screen and frowned. "Captain, I'm picking up something. It's a distress signal." Lisa sat up straight. "Origin?" "About 6 light years from here. The signal is weak, but it's definitely a call for help. Multiple languages and symbols, all indicating they're under attack." Lisa stood and walked to Jake's station. She looked at the data scrolling across the screen. The signal had universal peace symbols mixed with the text. Whoever was sending this had never fought a war before. "They were innocents. Can you identify the attackers?" Lisa asked. Jake worked for a minute, running the signal through their database. "Yes, I'm getting weapon signatures in the background. Crethian design. This is a Crethian attack." Lisa's jaw tightened. The Crethians were known to the human government. They were empire builders, conquerors who took what they wanted and enslaved or killed anyone who resisted. Earth had not yet had direct contact with them, but intelligence reports painted an ugly picture. "Amy, how fast can we get there?" Lisa called out. Amy's voice came through the intercom from engineering. "At maximum speed, about 18 hours. But Captain, we're just a scout ship. We don't have the firepower to fight a Crethian fleet." Lisa knew Amy was right. The Valiant had light weapons, enough to defend against pirates or small threats, but a Crethian war fleet? That was different. Still, Lisa could not ignore a distress call. It went against everything she believed in, everything humanity stood for. "Jake, send an emergency transmission back to Earth. Use the priority Alpha channel. Tell them we have a situation. Peaceful species under attack by the Krethians. We're responding, but we need backup. Full fleet response. Yes, Captain. Lisa turned to face her crew on the bridge. We're going to help them. I know we're outgunned, but we can do reconnaissance, maybe rescue some civilians, gather intel for the fleet when they arrive. We're not going to leave innocent people to die. Everyone agreed? Every crew member on the bridge nodded. This was why they joined the Terran fleet. Not for glory or conquest, but to protect those who could not protect themselves. The Valiant changed course and jumped to faster-than-light travel. The ship hummed with energy as it raced toward Velcora Prime. Lisa stood on the bridge watching the stars blur past. She thought about Earth, about humanity's history. Humans came from a dangerous world. A world with predators, diseases, storms, earthquakes, and 100 other things that tried to kill them every day. Humans evolved to survive all of that. They became tough, adaptable, and very good at fighting. But humans also learned something else. They learned that strength should protect the weak, not exploit them. When humans reached the stars and found other species, they made a choice. They would use their strength to defend, not to conquer. Lisa hoped the fleet would arrive in time. She hoped Earth would send enough ships to make a difference, because if the Krethians thought they could attack peaceful species without consequences, they were about to learn a hard lesson. 18 hours later, the Valiant dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Velcora system. What Lisa saw on the view screen made her blood run cold. Krethian warships surrounded the planet like a net. 30 vessels, all armed and dangerous. On the planet's surface, fires burned, cities were damaged, and Krethian soldiers were landing in dropships. Jake, keep us hidden. Use the asteroid field for cover. Amy, keep power low so they don't detect us. Henry, prepare the medical bay for casualties. Lisa stared at the planet and the fleet surrounding it. The Valiant could not fight 30 warships, but she could gather information. She could prepare for when help arrived. Send another message to Earth, Lisa said quietly. Tell them to hurry. Earth received the emergency transmission from Captain Lisa Morgan at midnight, Greenwich Mean Time. The message traveled through space at faster-than-light speed using humanity's quantum communication network. Within minutes, it reached Terran Command Headquarters in Geneva. Admiral Christopher Hayes was sleeping when his phone rang. He woke immediately, as all military officers learned to do. When he saw the caller identification showing Priority Alpha Emergency, he was out of bed in seconds. Hayes here. Admiral, we have a situation. Captain Morgan from the USS Valiant reports a peaceful species under attack by the Krethian Dominion. She's requesting immediate fleet support. Christopher was in his uniform and heading to headquarters within 10 minutes. His driver broke several speed limits getting him there, but no one would complain. Not for a Priority Alpha call. The command center was already buzzing with activity when Christopher arrived. Screens showed the star map with Velcora Prime highlighted. Intelligence officers pulled up everything they knew about the Krethians. Military strategists began planning fleet movements. Christopher looked at the data and made his decision quickly. He had been an admiral for 15 years, and before that he served in combat zones across human space. He knew that some decisions could not wait for committees or long discussions. Send out the mobilization order, Christopher said. I want every available ship ready to move within 6 hours. We're going in with full force. A younger officer looked concerned. Admiral, shouldn't we consult with the civilian government first? This could start a war with the Krethian Dominion. Christopher turned to face the officer. The Krethians started this war when they attacked a peaceful species. We have a policy and it's very simple. No genocide, no slavery, no conquest of innocence. If we ignore this, what does that say about humanity? Send the order. Across Earth and its colonies, the call went out. Every military base received the same message. Prepare for immediate deployment. This was not a drill. Captain Daniel Carter was on leave visiting his parents in Colorado. He was drinking coffee on their back porch watching the mountains when his phone buzzed. The message was clear. Report immediately. He kissed his mother goodbye, shook his father's hand, and was on a transport to orbit within an hour. Daniel was given command of the UTS Thunderstrike, a heavy battlecruiser that carried enough weapons to level a city. The ship was massive, over a kilometer long, with armor thick enough to withstand direct hits from most weapons in the galaxy. Daniel had commanded her before, and he knew every system on board. Commander Nicole Webb received her orders while teaching a class at the Fleet Academy. She was an expert pilot who now trained others, but she was also a rated carrier commander. They needed her skills. She left her students with an assistant and headed to orbit where the UTS Horizon waited. The Horizon was a carrier, a ship designed to launch and recover smaller fighter craft. It carried 3 full squadrons, 90 pilots in total. Nicole knew many of them personally. She had flown with some, trained others. They were the best humanity had. Colonel Ryan Mitchell got his orders during a training exercise. His Marines were practicing zero-gravity combat when the call came through. He assembled his battalion within 2 hours. 3,000 Marines, all equipped with powered armor and weapons designed for urban combat and shipboarding actions. Ryan had been a Marine for 20 years. He joined as a private and worked his way up through combat experience and natural leadership. His troops would follow him into hell if he asked. Today, he was asking them to follow him into battle against an empire that had conquered dozens of worlds. The assembly of the fleet was impressive. Ships came from Earth orbit, from Mars, from the asteroid belt mining stations, from colonies on Europa and Titan. Each ship was crewed and ready. Battlecruisers like the Thunderstrike formed the heavy assault line. Carriers like the Horizon provided fighter support. Destroyers acted as fast attack vessels. Support ships carried supplies, medical facilities, and repair equipment. In total, more than 80 warships prepared to jump to Velcora Prime. 15,000 human military personnel. It was the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled for a single mission. Admiral Christopher Hayes stood in the command center and looked at the display showing every ship. This was humanity's might, not built for conquest but ready to defend. Human ships were different from other species' vessels. They were tougher, designed to handle the dangerous environment of space near Earth. They carried weapons that used kinetic energy and chemical explosives alongside energy weapons. Humans had not abandoned old technology just because they found new technology. They used whatever worked. "Admiral, all ships report ready," an officer announced. Christopher nodded. "Give the order. All ships jump to Velcora Prime. Standard battle formation. Rules of engagement. Disable enemy vessels when possible, destroy them if necessary. Priority is protecting civilians and stopping the attack. We are not there to conquer. We are there to protect." The fleet jumped to faster than light speed. The journey would take 36 hours. Christopher used that time to brief his commanders. Each captain received detailed information about the Krethians, about Velcora Prime, about the mission objectives. Captain Daniel Carter studied the data in his quarters aboard the Thunderstrike. The Krethians were experienced warriors. They had good ships and decent weapons, but their tactics were straightforward. They relied on overwhelming force and intimidation. They had never faced an opponent who was truly dangerous. Humans were different. Humans came from a planet that tried to kill them constantly. They evolved as hunters, as pack predators who used tools and tactics. Human military doctrine was built on thousands of years of warfare against the most dangerous enemy imaginable: other humans. Commander Nicole Webb briefed her pilots in the Horizon's main hangar. She stood before 90 men and women who wore flight suits and carried helmets. They were young, most of them eager and well-trained. "Listen up," Nicole said. "We're going into combat against the Krethian Dominion. They've attacked a peaceful species that asked for our help. Our job is to provide air superiority and support for the capital ships. The Krethians have fighters too, but intelligence says they're not as maneuverable as ours. We have an advantage. Use it, fly smart, watch each other's backs. And remember, we're not there to rack up kill counts. We're there to stop an invasion and save lives." The pilots nodded. Some looked nervous. Others looked excited. All of them looked determined. Colonel Ryan Mitchell addressed his Marines in the troop bay. 3,000 soldiers in powered armor stood at attention. The armor made them look like machines, but inside each suit was a human being. "Marines," Ryan said, his voice carried by speakers throughout the bay. "We're about to land on a planet under occupation. The enemy has soldiers on the ground who are rounding up civilians. Our mission is to stop them and rescue as many people as possible. The Krethians are warriors, but they've never fought humans. They don't know what a Deathworld soldier looks like. Show them. But remember the rules. We don't shoot prisoners. We don't harm civilians. We are the good guys. Act like it." The Marines responded with a unified shout. "Hoorah!" 36 hours after leaving Earth, the fleet arrived at Velcora Prime. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 80 human warships appeared at the edge of the system like an avenging force. War Master Zekthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bloodfang. He was tall for a Krethian, nearly 3 meters, with dark red scales that marked him as a veteran of many battles. His eyes were yellow with vertical pupils, and his clawed hands rested on the command console as he watched the invasion proceed. Velcora Prime was an easy conquest. The inhabitants had no military. Their defenses were minimal. Within 2 days, Zekthar's fleet had destroyed their satellites and crippled their ability to resist. Now his soldiers were on the ground, gathering the Velcorians for processing. Some would be sold as slaves. Others would work in mines on Krethian colonies. The planet itself would become part of the Dominion. This was how the Krethian Empire grew. They found weak species and took their worlds. They had done this 47 times before. Velcora Prime was just another conquest in a long list. Zekthar's second-in-command, a younger Krethian named Vorshan, approached with a report. War Master, the ground forces report good progress. We have secured 3 major cities and captured approximately 50,000 of the water dwellers. Good, Zekthar said. What about resistance? None. They hide or flee, but they do not fight. Zekthar nodded. This was expected. Peaceful species never fought back. They did not have the instinct for violence. They were prey and the Krethians were predators. It was the natural order. War Master, a sensor officer called out suddenly. I'm detecting multiple faster-than-light signatures. Ships are arriving at the edge of the system. Zekthar turned to look at the display. His eyes narrowed. How many? Scanning now. I count. 80 vessels, War Master. They are in military formation. 80 ships? Zekthar felt the first stirring of concern. His fleet had 30 warships. He was used to having overwhelming force. Who would send such a large fleet to help these water dwellers? Identify them, Zekthar ordered. The sensor officer worked quickly. They are broadcasting identification codes. They claim to be from a species called humans. From a planet named Earth. War Master, I have no records of this species in our database. Humans. Zekthar had never heard of them. That was unusual. The Krethians kept detailed records of most species in this region of space. Perhaps these humans were from far away beyond Krethian territory. Get me visual on their fleet. The main screen changed to show the human ships. Zekthar studied them carefully. They were large, built with heavy armor and multiple weapon systems. The designs were strange, not like typical starships. They looked brutal, functional, designed for war. They are hailing us, War Master. Put them through. The screen changed again to show a human. Zekthar studied the alien carefully. It was a male based on the vocal patterns, bipedal like Krethians but without scales. Instead, it had smooth skin and wore a uniform. The face was flat with forward-facing eyes. Predator eyes, the human spoke in a calm voice. I am Admiral Christopher Hayes of the Terran Defense Coalition. You are currently engaged in aggressive military action against a peaceful species who requested our protection. You have one opportunity to withdraw all forces and leave this system immediately. If you refuse, we will remove you by force. You have 10 minutes to decide. Zekthar felt rage building inside him. This human dared to threaten him, to demand he withdraw from a legitimate conquest. I am War Master Zekthar of the Krethian Dominion. This world now belongs to the Dominion by right of conquest. You have no authority here. Leave immediately or face destruction. The human's expression did not change. I will take that as a refusal. You have made your choice. May your ancestors forgive you because we will not. The transmission ended. Zekthar turned to his officers. Battle stations. All ships prepare for combat. These humans think they can challenge the Dominion. We will show them the price of such arrogance. The Krethian fleet moved into attack formation. 30 warships against 80. The numbers were not in Zekthar's favor, but he had confidence in his warriors. The Krethians had never lost a major battle. Their weapons were powerful. Their tactics were proven. All ships target the lead human vessels. Fire on my command. The 10 minutes passed quickly. When the deadline expired, Zekthar gave the order. Fire! 30 Krethian warships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma bolts and energy beams lanced across space toward the human fleet. The weapons were powerful enough to melt through most ship armor. They had destroyed countless enemies before. The plasma hit the human shields and dissipated. The energy beam struck human armor and left scorched marks, but no serious damage. Zekthar stared at the display in shock. His weapons should have crippled at least a few ships. Instead, the humans barely seemed affected. "Return fire," came the calm voice of Admiral Hayes across all channels. The human fleet responded. The Thunderstrike and other battlecruisers fired their railguns. These weapons used magnetic acceleration to launch solid projectiles at incredible speeds. The tungsten rods left the barrels at a significant fraction of light speed. When the first rod hit a Krathian destroyer, the ship simply came apart. The kinetic energy was so massive that the destroyer's shields might as well have not existed. The armor crumpled like paper. The ship broke into 3 pieces and began tumbling through space. 3 more Krathian ships were hit in the first salvo. All 3 were either destroyed or crippled beyond repair. Zekthar could not believe what he was seeing. "Evasive maneuvers. Return fire. All weapons." The Krathian fleet tried to fight back, but they were outmatched. Human ships moved with precision. Their shields absorbed weapon fire that would destroy other vessels. Their armor was thick enough to handle direct hits. And their weapons were devastating. The Horizon launched its fighter squadrons. 90 small craft poured out of the carrier like angry insects. They accelerated toward the Krathian fleet at speeds that shocked the defenders. The Krathians launched their own fighters. 50 craft met the humans in the space between the fleets. The battle was short. Human pilots had reflexes trained on a high-gravity world. They could handle acceleration that would kill most species. Their reaction times were faster, their coordination better. Within minutes, 40 Krathian fighters were destroyed or disabled. The human pilots lost only 3 craft, and the pilots ejected safely before their ships were destroyed. Lieutenant Justin Cole led his squadron in an attack run on a Krathian cruiser. His fighter was small but fast and heavily armed. He locked onto the cruiser's engine section and fired missiles. The weapon struck with precision, destroying the engines and leaving the cruiser dead in space. Captain Melissa Grant, another ace pilot, coordinated with her squadron to disable weapon systems on Krathian ships. Her tactics were surgical, precise. She did not just destroy enemy vessels, she removed their ability to fight. On the flagship, Zekthar watched his fleet being torn apart. In less than an hour, 18 of his ships were disabled. 7 more had surrendered. 5 attempted to flee, but human destroyers chased them down and forced them to stop. The Bloodfang was surrounded by human ships. Zekthar realized with growing horror that he was going to lose. For the first time in his military career, he was facing defeat. While the space battle raged above, another conflict was happening on the surface of Velcora Prime. Thousands of Krathian soldiers had landed in dropships and spread across the planet. Their mission was to capture as many Velcorians as possible and secure strategic locations. Colonel Ryan Mitchell stood in the drop bay of his transport ship, surrounded by his Marines. They were in full combat armor, powered suits that made each soldier stronger, faster, and more protected. The armor was painted in dark colors with identification markers. Each Marine carried weapons designed for multiple types of combat. "Listen up," Ryan said over the squad communication channel. "Intelligence reports show Krathian soldiers rounding up civilians in the coastal cities. Our primary objective is rescue and evacuation. Secondary objective is to disable enemy forces. Remember, we don't kill prisoners. If they surrender, we take them into custody." Questions? There were no questions. The Marines knew their jobs. Good. Let's go save some people. The transport ships descended through the atmosphere. The Krathians detected them coming but were too busy dealing with the space battle to mount an effective defense. The transports landed on beaches near the occupied cities, and 3,000 human Marines deployed in coordinated waves. Sergeant Kyle Brooks led his squad through the streets of a coastal city. The buildings were made from coral and crystal, beautiful but damaged from the bombardment. Water ran through channels in the streets, and some structures floated on the water's surface. Kyle could see Krathian soldiers ahead. They were herding a group of Velcorians toward a large transport vehicle. The Velcorians looked terrified, their large eyes wide with fear. Some of the young ones were crying. "Squad, form up on me," Kyle said quietly. His armor had camouflage systems that made him harder to see. His squad moved like ghosts through the damaged buildings. The Krathians did not know humans were there until it was too late. Kyle's squad emerged from cover with weapons raised. The Marines used rifles that fired supersonic projectiles, along with non-lethal stun weapons for situations like this. "Drop your weapons," Kyle shouted in the Krathian language, which his suit's computer translated automatically. The Krethians spun around in surprise. There were 8 of them, all armed. For a moment no one moved. Then one Krethian raised his weapon toward the Velkorians as if to use them as hostages. Kyle's rifle cracked once. The shot hit the Krethian's weapon, destroying it and leaving the soldier's hand numb but uninjured. It was a perfect shot at 30 meters. The other Krethians realized they were facing professional soldiers. 3 of them dropped their weapons immediately. The other 4 tried to fight. It was a mistake. Human Marines were trained for close-quarters combat. They moved with speed and coordination that shocked the Krethians. Within seconds, all 4 resisting soldiers were on the ground, disarmed and restrained. Not one Marine was injured. Kyle approached the Velkorians carefully. He removed his helmet so they could see his face. "It's okay. We're here to help. You're safe now." The Velkorians stared at him with wonder and relief. One of them, an elder with dark blue skin, moved forward hesitantly. "You answered our call?" the Velkorian asked in his own language, which Kyle's suit translated. "Yes, we're from Earth. We're humans, and we're going to get you somewhere safe." Kyle's squad escorted the Velkorians to a secure location, while other Marines continued clearing the city. The pattern repeated across multiple locations. Human soldiers found groups of captured Velkorians and freed them. Krethian soldiers who surrendered were detained. Those who resisted were quickly defeated. The Krethians discovered that fighting humans on the ground was even harder than fighting them in space. Humans could see in low-light conditions. They could hear sounds that Krethians missed. They moved quietly despite wearing heavy armor. And they coordinated their tactics with a precision that came from being social hunters. In one location, a Krethian officer named HFY tried to organize a defense. He had 50 soldiers in a fortified position with good fields of fire. When human Marines approached, HFY was confident he could hold them off. Lieutenant Rachel Stone led the assault on that position. She was young but experienced, having served in combat zones for 5 years. She studied the Krethian defenses and came up with a plan. Squad 1, suppressing fire from the left. Squad 2, flank right and use smoke grenades. Squad 3, with me. We're going straight in. The attack was textbook perfect. Squad 1 fired on the Krethian position, forcing them to keep their heads down. Squad 2 used smoke to obscure vision and moved around the flank. Squad 3 advanced directly while the Krethians were distracted. HFY realized his mistake too late. Human tactics were more sophisticated than anything he had encountered. His soldiers were surrounded, outmaneuvered, and outfought. Within 10 minutes, all 50 Krethians had surrendered. Rachel stood before HFY, who was now on his knees with his hands secured behind his back. "You're a prisoner of war. You will be treated according to the laws of war. That means you will not be harmed, tortured, or executed. You'll be held until this conflict is resolved." HFY looked up at her with confusion. "Why do you tell me this?" "Because that's how we do things. We're not here to commit atrocities. We're here to stop them." The ground campaign lasted only 4 hours. Human Marines swept through every occupied area with overwhelming efficiency. They rescued over 50,000 Velkorians who had been captured. They detained approximately 4,000 Krethian soldiers. Only 43 Krethians died in the fighting, all of them killed while actively resisting. Not a single human soldier was killed. 12 were injured, but their armor protected them from serious harm. Captain Lisa Morgan and her crew from the USS Valiant had been on the planet for days before the fleet arrived. They had conducted guerrilla operations, rescuing small groups of Velkorians and gathering intelligence. When the Marines arrived, Lisa coordinated with Colonel Ryan Mitchell to ensure maximum efficiency. Lisa had grown close to some of the Velkorians she rescued. One of them, a young female named Shira, stayed near Lisa constantly. Shira had lost her family in the bombardment and looked to Lisa as a protector. "Why do you help us?" Shira asked in her musical voice. "We have nothing to give you." Lisa knelt down to be at Shira's eye level. "We help because it's the right thing to do. Where we come from, we believe that the strong should protect the weak, not exploit them. Not enslave them, protect them." Shira's large eyes filled with tears. "I thought no one would hear our message. I thought we would all die or be taken away." Lisa put a gentle hand on Shira's shoulder. "Someone always hears, and if they're worth anything, they answer." Above the planet, the space battle was ending. The Krethian fleet was defeated. War Master Zekthar's flagship was surrounded by human ships. Admiral Hayes sent one final message. Surrender your vessel or we will board you by force. Zekthar looked around his bridge. His officers were defeated, exhausted. His ships were destroyed or captured. His soldiers on the ground were prisoners. He had lost completely. For the first time in his life, Zekthar felt shame. The Krathians prided themselves on their warrior culture. To surrender was considered the ultimate disgrace, but to continue fighting was pointless. These humans had defeated him utterly. Lower our shields, Zekthar said quietly, prepared to be boarded. Within minutes, human marines in powered armor entered the Blood Fang. They moved through the ship with weapons ready but held their fire. The Krathians did not resist. They simply stared at these aliens who had defeated them so completely. The Battle of Velcora Prime was over in less than 4 hours. The Krathian fleet was defeated. Their soldiers were captured. The occupation had ended. Now came the difficult work of making peace and rebuilding what had been destroyed. Admiral Christopher Hayes stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the planet below. The cities showed damage from the bombardment, but most of the population had survived by hiding in underground shelters. The Krathians had not been there long enough to cause maximum destruction. Send a message to the Velcorian government, Christopher ordered. Tell them the threat is over. They are safe. We would like to meet with their leaders to discuss next steps. The message was sent, and within an hour a response came back. The Velcorian Council wanted to meet immediately. They proposed a meeting in their capital city, which was partially damaged but still functional. Christopher took a shuttle down to the surface, accompanied by several advisors and a security detail. Captain Daniel Carter and Commander Nicole Webb joined him. They wanted to see the people they had fought to protect. The shuttle landed near the council building, which was a beautiful structure made from white coral that glowed faintly. Water surrounded it on all sides, and Velcorians swam through channels that connected different parts of their city. Theron, the elder who had sent the original distress signal, waited to greet them. He stood on a platform that rose from the water, his blue skin glistening. When he saw the humans approaching, his large eyes filled with tears. "You came," Theron said, his voice carrying emotion. "You actually came to help us." Christopher extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Theron looked at the hand uncertainly, then reached out and grasped it gently. His hand was webbed and smooth. Strange to Christopher, but friendly. "We received your distress call," Christopher said. "We couldn't ignore it. No one should have to face extinction or slavery alone." Theron led the humans into the council chamber. Other Velcorian elders were there, along with survivors from the attacked cities. They all looked at the humans with wonder and gratitude. The meeting began with Theron explaining what had happened. The Krathians had arrived without warning. They destroyed defensive satellites and bombarded cities. They landed soldiers and began capturing civilians. The Velcorians had no way to fight back. They had never developed weapons or military forces. Their entire culture was built on peace and cooperation. "We thought we would all die or be enslaved," Theron said sadly. "We sent the distress signal hoping anyone would hear it. We did not know if anyone would care about our fate." Christopher listened carefully. "We care. Where we come from, we have a saying. Evil triumphs when good people do nothing. We are not going to stand by and watch peaceful species be destroyed by empires and conquerors." One of the other Velcorian elders, a female named Lyra, asked a question that was clearly on everyone's mind. "What payment do you require for your help? Our world is poor in minerals. We have no great wealth, but we will give you whatever we can." Christopher shook his head. "We don't require payment. We're not here to exploit you. We came because it was the right thing to do." The Velcorians looked at each other in amazement. In their experience with other spacefaring species, everything had a price. Help was bought and sold. But these humans were saying they wanted nothing? "However," Christopher continued, "we would like to offer you something. A treaty of mutual defense and friendship. If you agree, humanity will help protect your world from future threats. In return, we hope you would be willing to share your knowledge and culture with us. We've heard that Velcorian medical science and environmental technology are very advanced. We could learn from each other." Theron's eyes widened. "You offer to protect us and ask only for friendship and knowledge exchange? This is unprecedented." "That's how humans prefer to do business," Christopher said with a slight smile. "We believe in cooperation between species, not domination." The council discussed the offer among themselves, speaking in their musical language. It did not take long for them to reach a decision. "We accept your offer," Theron said formally. "We would be honored to have humans as friends and allies." Over the next several days, human ships remained in orbit while work began on the surface. Engineers like Amy Sullivan from the USS Valiant worked alongside Velkorian scientists to repair damaged infrastructure. The humans shared technology for power generation and construction. The Velkorians shared their knowledge of environmental systems and biological medicine. Dr. Henry Collins was particularly interested in Velkorian medicine. They had developed techniques for healing that humans had never considered. Working with Velkorian physicians, Henry learned about treatments that could revolutionize human medical care. Captain Lisa Morgan spent much of her time with the Velkorians she had rescued. Young Shira stayed close to her, and Lisa found herself becoming attached to the young alien. Shira's family had been found alive in a shelter, and the reunion was emotional. Shira's parents thanked Lisa with tears streaming down their faces. "You saved our daughter," Shira's mother said. "We can never repay you." "You don't need to repay me," Lisa said gently. "Just live good lives, be happy. That's enough." Meanwhile, the captured Krethian soldiers were being held on human prison ships. They were treated well, given food and medical care, but they were definitely prisoners. War Master Zekthar was separated from his troops and held in a secure facility. Admiral Hayes visited Zekthar to talk with him. The Krethian war leader was sullen and angry, sitting in a cell that was comfortable but clearly a prison. "Why am I being held?" Zekthar demanded. "Your people won the battle. Kill me and be done with it." Christopher looked at him calmly. "We don't execute prisoners. You will be held until a war crimes tribunal can be arranged. You ordered the attack on a peaceful planet, the bombardment of civilian targets, and the enslavement of an entire species. You will answer for those crimes." Zekthar laughed bitterly. "War crimes? I was following the ways of my people. We conquer the weak. That is how empires are built. And that's how empires fall," Christopher replied. "Your Dominion has a choice now. Stop the conquests, release the species you've enslaved, and join the galactic community as a peaceful member, or face isolation and potential military action from the Terran Coalition and anyone else who wants to stop you." "You would go to war with the entire Krethian Dominion?" Christopher's expression was serious. "If necessary, yes. We will not allow genocide and slavery to continue. Your people can choose peace, or they can choose to fight against every species that values freedom. I know which choice I would make." Zekthar fell silent, thinking about what Christopher had said. The Krethian warrior culture was strong, but it was not stupid. Fighting against humanity and its allies would be costly, perhaps impossible to win. Back on Velkora Prime, a ceremony was being prepared. The Velkorians wanted to formally thank humanity for their help. Thousands of Velkorians gathered in the central plaza of their capital city. Human soldiers and sailors were invited to attend. Theron stood before the crowd and spoke in his musical voice. "Today, we honor those who answered our call in our darkest hour. The humans came from far away, bringing strength when we had none, hope when we had lost it. They asked for nothing and gave us everything. Our freedom, our lives, our future." The crowd of Velkorians sang together, a hauntingly beautiful sound that echoed across the water. It was their way of expressing gratitude, a song that would be remembered for generations. News of the Battle of Velkora Prime spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Traders carried the story from system to system. Communication networks buzzed with reports. A new species had appeared, one powerful enough to defeat the Krethian Dominion in a matter of hours. The story was always the same. A peaceful species sent a distress call. Humans answered. The Krethians were crushed. The Velkorians were saved. But what made the story truly remarkable was what happened after the battle. The humans did not conquer Velkora Prime. They did not demand tribute or resources. They offered friendship and protection, asking for nothing in return except mutual cooperation. This was unprecedented in galactic history. On the Krethian homeworld, the ruling council met in emergency session. They had lost an entire fleet and 4,000 soldiers. War Master Zekthar was captured and would face trial. And now this new species, these humans, were demanding that the Krethian Dominion change its ways. The debate was fierce. Some council members wanted war. They argued that the Krethians could not allow such a defeat to go unanswered. They had 40 other conquered worlds with resources and troops. They could build a larger fleet and attack human space. Other council members were more cautious. They had studied the reports from the battle. The human technology was not dramatically superior to Crethean technology, but the humans used it more effectively. Their tactics were better, their training was superior, and most importantly, they seemed willing to actually die for their principles. That last part was what scared the cautious Cretheans. Most species in the galaxy avoided conflict when possible. War was expensive and dangerous, but the humans had traveled across space to help strangers. They had risked their lives for people they had never met. What would they do if their own worlds were threatened? After days of debate, a decision was reached. The Crethean Dominion would send an ambassador to Earth. They would negotiate, not fight, at least for now. Ambassador Patricia Newman received the Crethean delegation at a neutral space station halfway between Crethean and human space. Patricia was a career diplomat who had negotiated treaties with dozens of species. She was in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. The Crethean ambassador, an old warrior named Kranthos, arrived with a small entourage. He was cautious and suspicious, as any Crethean would be after such a defeat. Patricia greeted him politely and led him to a conference room. They sat across from each other at a table with translators ensuring clear communication. "Let me be direct," Patricia said. "Humanity has no desire for war with the Crethean Dominion. But we will not tolerate the conquest and enslavement of peaceful species. The era of empire building through force is over." Kranthos bristled at her tone. "You speak as if humans control the galaxy. You do not. The Crethean Dominion has existed for centuries. We have claimed many worlds. You cannot simply demand we abandon our territory." Patricia leaned forward slightly. "We're not demanding you abandon territory. We're demanding you free the people you've enslaved. Release the species you've conquered. Let them govern themselves. If they choose to ally with you voluntarily, that's fine. But the days of forced servitude are finished. And if we refuse, then the Terran Coalition will take action. We'll help those species gain their freedom. We'll enforce economic sanctions. And if necessary, we'll use military force. But it doesn't have to come to that. You can choose peace." Kranthos was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "What you ask would diminish the Dominion greatly. Our economy depends on the resources from conquered worlds. Then build a new economy based on trade and cooperation. We're willing to help with that transition. The Terran Coalition has connections with many species. We can facilitate trade agreements. But the slavery stops. That's not negotiable." The negotiations lasted for weeks. In the end, an agreement was reached. The Crethean Dominion would begin releasing conquered species over a period of 5 years. They would pay reparations to those they had harmed. In return, humanity would help them establish trade relationships and would not impose military sanctions during the transition period. It was not perfect, but it was progress. While diplomacy happened in conference rooms, something else was happening across the galaxy. Peaceful species who had lived in fear of stronger empires began reaching out to humanity. They had heard the story of Velcora Prime. They wanted the same protection. Within 6 months, the Terran Coalition grew from just human worlds to include 23 different species. All of them were peaceful civilizations who wanted security without giving up their independence. Humanity offered exactly that, protection without conquest. Captain Daniel Carter and Commander Nicole Webb found themselves not just military officers but ambassadors. They traveled to new worlds, meeting with alien governments, explaining human policies and values. Everywhere they went, the message was the same. Cooperation is better than domination. Peace is better than war. The strong should protect the weak. Colonel Ryan Mitchell and his Marines became famous throughout the galaxy. Stories of human soldiers who could fight with incredible skill but chose mercy whenever possible spread across 1,000 worlds. Young aliens from peaceful species looked up to human Marines as heroes. On Earth, the effect was equally profound. Humanity had always wondered about their place in the galaxy. They evolved on a dangerous world, becoming physically tough and mentally resilient. Some humans worried that this made them too violent, too aggressive for peaceful coexistence with aliens. But Velcora Prime proved something important. Humanity's strength did not have to be used for conquest. It could be used for protection. The same traits that made humans dangerous also made them capable defenders. Captain Lisa Morgan eventually returned to Earth for a formal ceremony. She was awarded the Terran Star of Valor, the highest military honor humanity could give. At the ceremony, she spoke briefly about her experience. When we received that distress signal, we didn't hesitate. Not because we wanted glory or rewards, but because it was right. That's what humanity is about. We've fought each other for thousands of years on Earth. We know war. We know violence. But we also know that strength without compassion is just brutality. We chose to be better than that. Young Shira, the Velkorian child Lisa had rescued, attended the ceremony with her family. The Velkorian government had sent them as representatives. When Lisa finished speaking, Shira approached the stage and presented her with a gift, a piece of crystal from Velkora Prime, carved with both Velkorian and human symbols representing friendship. Admiral Christopher Hayes watched from the audience with satisfaction. This was what he had hoped for. Not just a military victory, but a demonstration of human values. The galaxy was watching, and humanity was showing them something different, something better. On Velkora Prime, construction was nearly complete. The damaged cities had been rebuilt stronger and more beautiful than before. Human and Velkorian engineers had worked together, combining technologies to create structures that were both functional and artistic. A monument was erected in the capital city. It showed Theron sending the distress signal, and next to him a human soldier extending a hand in friendship. The inscription was carved in multiple languages. When darkness came, we called for help. The humans answered. They asked for nothing but gave us everything. May all species remember that strength should serve justice, and power should protect the innocent. Years later, historians would mark the Battle of Velkora Prime as a turning point in galactic history. It was the moment when a new philosophy emerged, that advanced species had a responsibility to protect, not exploit. That peace was not weakness. That cooperation was stronger than conquest. Humanity became known across the galaxy not as conquerors, but as guardians. They were the Deathworlders who chose compassion, the predators who defended prey species, the warriors who valued peace. And whenever a distress signal was sent into the void, peaceful species knew that someone would answer. Somewhere out there, humans were watching, ready to help those who could not help themselves. The age of empire building was ending. A new age was beginning. An age where the strong protected the weak, where species worked together instead of fighting, where the word human became synonymous with hope. Captain Lisa Morgan stood on the observation deck of the USS Valiant, now on a new mission to explore uncharted regions of space. She looked out at the stars and smiled. Somewhere out there, other species might need help, and humanity would be ready to answer their call, because that was what Deathworlders did. They survived impossible odds. They adapted to any challenge, and when others were in danger, they fought to protect them. The galaxy was not ready for humanity's arrival, but now that humans were here, the galaxy was becoming a better place.